Hello, my friends. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and G25 results of a Iron Age Anatolian woman from Turkey, from Western Turkey, Phrygian woman from Western Turkey. Phrygians were essentially an Indo-European people who lived in Western Anatolia in the Iron Age, 7th century to essentially around the 1st century before the Common Era. What's interesting is that on the Wikipedia page for Phrygians, it says that they inhabited Anatolia 12 centuries before the Common Era, which is very different from what you see on illustrative DNA. So I'm not sure what the discrepancy here is caused by. I am more inclined to believe the stuff that's on the illustrative DNA. So I am covering the samples that are here on illustrative DNA. Gore 001 is not a Phrygian. That's very interesting, actually. Why did they have it listed here? It seems to be some kind of a mistake, because that is a medieval Russian sample, but I already know that because I covered this sample previously. But anyway, the sample we are covering today is I3917. It is this sample right here. I am not going to cover every sample from Phrygians that is listed here on illustrative DNA, because not every sample is high quality enough. I am only going to cover the samples that are decent quality. So I3917 is decent quality sample, so I'm going to look at this one. And I'm also going to look at some of the other samples that are listed here on illustrative DNA for Phrygians. Essentially, the autosomal DNA breakdown of Phrygians is something like this. Mostly Anatolian Neolithic farmer ancestry. They have a little bit of Caucasus and Zagrosia Neolithic farmer ancestry as well. They have a little bit of Natufian ancestry, and they also have a little bit of European hunter-gatherer admixture as well, which makes sense because they are Indo-Europeans. So, being Indo-Europeans, they would have a little bit of European hunter-gatherer admixture as well, which comes from the steppe peoples. It seems that the closest populations to them are Cypriot Greeks, Dodecanese Greeks, Anatolian Greeks. It surprises me that I'm not seeing Ashkenazi Jews or Jews in general here. I do see Romanio Jews, yes, and Sephardic Jews, but I'm not seeing Ashkenazi Jews, right? And they're closest to various Eastern Mediterraneans. Let's look at the closest ancient populations. The closest ancient populations are Byzantine Anatolians. So it looks like the genetics of Anatolians haven't really changed all that much from the Iron Age until the Byzantine period. They kind of stayed the same from the Iron Age onwards. They mostly cluster all around each other. Byzantine Anatolians, Roman Anatolians. Yeah, so from the Iron Age until the Byzantine period, they kind of resemble each other. That's nice to know. So anyway, let's look at the mitochondrial lineage of this female. She is a female, so she does not have Y DNA. There is no Y lineage for her. But her mitochondrial lineage is U3B2A1. I'm not sure. It descends from U, which is a European mitochondrial lineage, but I think it also is found in North Africa. I'm not sure. I do remember that U is found in North Africa, though. So I guess it's like a generally West Eurasian lineage. Maybe if you know more about mitochondrial lineages, you can enlighten me in the comments where that is most typically found in. But her mitochondrial lineage is essentially U3B2A1. And let's go ahead and explore her results with Nashakot and what she looks like and what her genetic predispositions are. I'm very excited to get into that. So it looks like she has dark brown eyes. That is her predicted eye color. It's 60.8% likelihood. She definitely doesn't have green eyes or blue eyes with a neighbor center. That is pretty much very, very, very easy to rule out. There is 0% odds for blue eyes, 0.2% odds for blue eyes with a neighbor center, 0.01% odds for green eyes. That is completely out of the picture. Even hazel eyes, even the odds, let me zoom in actually. Even the odds for hazel eyes are only 0.5%. So really her eye color is very, very dark, either brown or dark brown. For hair color likelihood distribution, she definitely has black hair. That is predicted with a likelihood of 99.9% odds. So she's also very, very dark haired. And there is absolutely 0% odds for any hair color other than black. So she's very dark in terms of hair color. For skin color, she has light brown skin. That is predicted with a likelihood of 87% likelihood. Yes, 87% odds. There is 5.8% odds for olive skin and 7% odds for dark brown skin and 0% odds for white or pale skin. So she definitely has light brown skin. So she's quite dark. She's got light brown skin, black hair, and dark brown eyes. That reminds me of, I would say, maybe Pakistanis or maybe North Indians or maybe Bangladesh, Bengali people, not necessarily people of Anatolia. For hair texture, it looks like she has wavy, straight, or curly hair, and not kinky hair. For kinky hair, she's only scoring 1.4% odds, so most likely she has straight, wavy, or curly hair. And for nose shape, she definitely has a Greek-shaped nose. Very interesting prediction here. 80.3% odds for Greek-shaped nose. Yeah, so she definitely has a Greek-shaped nose. Rather long, narrow, and aquiline nose shape for the nose shape. Now, for the coloring related variants found in the file, she does not have any light color in hair. So with snipper 3, we can already expect, I can zoom out now. So with snipper 3, we can already expect that she would score brown or hazel-like color. She does not have blue haplotype 3 or blue haplotype 2 or blue haplotype 1. So already from that, we can already expect brown with snipper 3 and brown with Y-sec. No light color variants with MC1R here. So we can actually check with what she scores with snipper 3. I think it's going to be brown. It's going to be brown, but we can check that right now. What? Oh yeah, I understand. I messed up. Let me fix that. I didn't do it right. Yeah, so it's brown. Actually, I'm curious to see what she would score for the skin color for snipper 3. Let's try to do the skin color for snipper 3. The classification for that. So we remember that with my tool, she scored light brown. Let's see what she scores for skin color with snipper 3. She's scoring white with snipper 3, but 2.47 times more likely white than intermediate. Actually, very close for intermediate. So snipper 3 skin color is very close for intermediate as well. And snipper 3 classification, intermediate is a lot darker in terms of what it means. So she's quite dark in terms of skin color. Let's look at the phenotype oracle. Looks like the closest phenotypes to her are this, which makes sense. It has light brown skin, black hair, dark brown eyes. It really fits the criteria, and Greek-shaped nose as well. Second closest phenotype is this, and third closest phenotype is this. So the closest phenotypes to her really fit the diagnostic criteria based on what she scored with Nashakot. And it looks like the closest mixtures to her is a mixture of 50%, I guess, Alpinian plus 50% this Sardinian phenotype, or not even Sardinian. I think it's called Berberid or something. Then the second closest mixture is a mixture of 50% this Pamirid plus 50% this Berberid. Third closest mixture is 50% this North Indian plus 50% this. I heard somebody in the comments previously in some previous video refer to this phenotype as South Indian. It's not South Indian. I don't see this as a South Indian phenotype whatsoever. You see this fine facial features, this long, narrow nose, big eyes. It is not a South Indian phenotype. This is a North Indian phenotype. So North Indian phenotype plus maybe even Pakistani or even Iranian. So I don't see this as a South Indian phenotype whatsoever. So North Indian phenotype plus I guess Berberid again. Then this Armenoid plus Berberid. Then this actually Cro-Magnon, or I guess like a Lapid, or like, what is it called? It has a name. Stranded, yeah, Stranded plus Berberid once again. So this seems to be the phenotypical breakdown for the sample. The closest mixture is a mixture of Alpinian plus Berberid, which is very interesting because I would say I would expect more of the Armenoid. I would expect to see more Armenoid in his breakdowns because Armenoid has more of the aquiline nose, Greek-shaped nose. But we can look at the facial morphology oracle here. Yes, we see a lot of the. I don't remember which is the Northern European and which is the Middle Eastern. This is the South Asian, right? This is the Northern European, I think. Yeah, so they actually mostly score Middle Eastern for the facial morphology oracle. So it's surprising that they don't score so much armenoid. Okay, I guess they score mostly alpinid and berberid. They are also Middle Eastern phenotypes, though. Both alpinid and berberid are Middle Eastern phenotypes. So it is also accurate, I think. Sort of, I guess, in a way. Maybe it's because armenoid is a little bit lighter. Maybe that's why they don't score it as the closest. Let's look at the biomarkers. Alright, so for the biomarkers, they have average level of vitamin D, pretty good. Above average level of LDL cholesterol, which is bad. Below average level of HDL cholesterol, which is bad. Above average level of glucose, which is bad. Above average level of hemoglobin, which is okay, it's not that bad. Below average level of blood pressure, which is good. Below average level of iron in the blood, which is also good, which means they don't have hemochromatosis variants. We can use this panel actually as a predictor for hemochromatosis variants. If you have hemochromatosis variants, you're gonna have a score above 120. Above average level of sex hormone binding globulin, below average level of red blood cell count in blood, below average level of base pairs for telomere length, so some predisposition against a longer lifespan, and the shorter expected height. So she's predisposed to being a little bit shorter than average, precisely 17 millimeters shorter than average. Very, very interesting. Let's look at the polygenic risk scores right now. We are going to ignore everything that is close to 1 and only look at the polygenic risk scores that are very distant from 1. So only the stuff that is very extremely, she has a predisposition for or against a certain condition. So she's very much predisposed to kidney stones, slightly protected from hemoglobin E disease, slightly protected from migraine, slightly protected from gout, slightly predisposed to thyroid cancer, slightly predisposed to eczema. She's slightly predisposed to primary congenital glaucoma. Right, that's very interesting. Slightly protected from cataracts, slightly predisposed to age-related macular degeneration, slightly predisposed to rheumatoid arthritis, protected from Tourette's, predisposed to epilepsy, predisposed to leukemia. Wow, that's very interesting. Let's look up leukemia. That's actually very interesting. Hold on, let's look it up. So she doesn't have any NQ01 alleles here, but she does have some genotypes that predispose her to the risk of leukemia over here, these 3 variants. Right, that's very interesting. She has below averages for vitiligo, above averages for myopia. She's got slightly above averages for corneal astigmatism. She's got above averages for primary biliary cirrhosis, below averages for stroke, higher odds for male pattern hair loss, which is very typical for people of Turkish descent, or I guess West Asian descent in general. Nothing is surprising here. She's got nothing was found for deep vein thrombosis. She's got above average odds for cardiovascular issues, which is very interesting. Slightly below odds for ADHD, slightly below averages for unipolar depression, slightly below averages for bipolar type 1, below averages for schizophrenia, below averages for type 2 diabetes, above averages for type 1 diabetes, above averages for Alzheimer's, which is very interesting, and below averages for multiple sclerosis. So what really strikes me here in the result is the high score for type 1 diabetes, and also the high score for leukemia. But the leukemia, we already understand why that is. We already went over that. The high score for type 1 diabetes is very interesting, though. She doesn't have increased score for multiple sclerosis, so it might not be due to the HLA gene panel, but we still need to investigate that. Let's scroll up and see lupus score. She's scoring above average for lupus, which is very interesting because that is also tied to the HLA gene panel. What about asthma? She's scoring average for asthma. So I can't really even find out if it's due to the HLA gene panel or not. I guess we can look that up right now. Hold on. No, it's not due to the HLA gene panel. Her HLA gene panel is looking good. It is looking good. So there must be. I guess we're gonna find out later a little bit. All right. For cancer section, she's got two risk variants of breast cancer out of 12. All right, and way below average also for prostate cancer, which is really good. And for testicular cancer, 12 out of 22, which is really good as well. And but she does have risk variants in all the relevant variations of KITL G, which is kind of bad. So she's quite cooked when it comes to testicular cancer risk variants. But that is also very typical for West Eurasians in general to have these risk variants. So like you probably have the same risk variants here, it's same as me, same as most other Europeans. So like we all have these risk variants, but most of us don't develop testicular cancer. So it's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. Celiac disease, she's got 5 risk variants, which is kind of bad actually. This is really unfortunate. So she does have a predisposition to celiac disease. Crohn's disease, she's got 4, but none of them are marked as important. Riefenstein's none. Parkinson's none. Gilbert's none of them are that are not common. Basal cell carcinoma none. And for allergies, she's got 9 risk variants at 26, which is a little bit higher than typical, but still okay. And we don't see any other uncommon risk variants here, right? Which is pretty cool. She doesn't have any predispositions to any of these rare conditions, which is pretty cool. Probably we're not going to see any miscalls in this file. Some files you see, it depends on how they were genotyped. Some files you see a lot of miscalls, but this file I am probably not going to see a lot of miscalls. Already this speaks volumes about the quality of the file. But the result for type 1 diabetes is very concerning. And this was based on 16 SNPs. How many SNPs for type 1 diabetes are there on the diabetes page? Let's look up the diabetes page. Hold on. Let's look it up. Right, so there's type 1 diabetes, very unlikely. Lower risk for type 1 diabetes, that's 2. Higher risk of type 1 diabetes, that's 3. There's lower risk of type 1, that's 4. Lower risk of type 1, that's 5. Slight risk, that's 6. So there's 6 SNPs, and 5 of them lead to lower odds of type 1 diabetes. That's very interesting. That's really, really interesting. So there is another 10 SNPs that don't show up on the screen that contribute to the increased risk of type 1 diabetes. That's very, very interesting. I do debate whether I should just put all that on the screen, but really, if I do that, if I put everything on the screen, then it will be impossible to. It will be just a cluster. It's going to be so clustered. There's going to be so much information that it will be impossible to um, evaluate it. It will be impossible to read it. It will be unreadable, right? That's why I'm trying to really put the most important stuff on the screen, and the lesser important stuff doesn't really get put on the screen. That's kind of how it is. So let's go through the stuff that's on the screen, and let's try to see what's on the panels here. For the warrior versus warrior, she is scoring definitely more of a warrior. She's got a predisposition to being a warrior. Phenotype based on his genotypes in COMT, MAOA, and MAOB. She's got a predisposition to warrior phenotype, so slower dopamine reuptake, higher dopamine levels, and lower stress resiliency. Essentially, the crux of the dichotomy of warrior versus warrior is that warriors have lower activity of the COMT, MAOA, and MAOB enzymes, which break down dopamine in the system. And if you have lower activity of these enzymes, that means you have slower dopamine breakdown and you have higher dopamine levels. And you are able to motivate yourself and you are able to perform under low stress conditions better. But when the conditions are more stressful, you naturally have higher dopamine production and there is too much dopamine. You are not able to function very well. I have my own theories actually about this condition, about warrior phenotype. I have my own theories, but I'm not going to say them here because I'm afraid of saying stuff that might be inaccurate and coming around as a fool and bubbling about stuff that's inaccurate. But I do have theories linking this worrier phenotype to things like psychosis and bipolar and mania. It might be incorrect. It might be incorrect, but I do have theories about that. And I don't, God forbid, I don't link that to any conditions with my trait predictors calculation. It is not linked to bipolar or schizophrenia with trait predictor. It does not affect those scores because I wouldn't use my hunches or my deranged little um, theories to affect. I don't work like this, right? I don't do that. I only include stuff that has concise research from the scientific community. I don't use my hunches to do things this way. I don't roll like that, right? So for dopamine D2 receptor sites, she's got a predisposition to intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptors, which leads to intermediate odds for such conditions as bipolar and schizophrenia. This actually does have research and backing from the scientific community. This is not something I made up, right? This is something that has research from the scientific community. So this is something I can talk about freely without being like, oh, I'm afraid of saying that. No, it's okay. I can say that because that's something you can Google and find out yourself. For levels of 5-HT and serotonin. Now, but for worrier versus worrier, I am a little bit afraid of making such statements because there is so much contradictory research in the scientific community linking worrier phenotype to certain conditions than worrier phenotype to certain conditions, and I just can't. I just can't. I have my own guesses, but I can't from my own perspective, it seems to make sense that the warrior phenotype with higher dopamine levels would be linked to psychosis, but I can't say that officially because there's some research that links the warrior phenotype to psychosis and stuff like that. So I can't make these statements because it contradicts some scientific findings. For levels of 5-HT and serotonin, she has a predisposition to lower or intermediate levels of 5-HT and serotonin, which leads to higher odds for such conditions as anxiety and depression. For odds of autism, she has some predisposition to lower or intermediate odds of autism, which is really good. So she's quite protected from autism. For lactose persistence, she actually has predisposition to higher odds of lactose intolerance. The largest thing she scores is 50% odds for being lactose intolerant, which is really, really interesting. So she's quite predisposed to being lactose persistent. She does not have any variants for European lactose persistence, or not even European. She doesn't have the Arab variant for lactose persistence, nor does she have the worldwide variant for lactose persistence. So she just doesn't have any variants for lactose persistence worldwide, which is very, very interesting. But it doesn't mean that she's lactose intolerant. There is still like basically a half chance that she tolerates milk just fine. That she has that she has the enzyme. Okay. She's got this uncommon genotype, which is to 7 times increased risk of DSPS, which is very interesting. Look up what that is. She has a predisposition to average level of empathy based on these 3 SNPs. Average level of empathy. For Alzheimer's, no risk variance in APOE, which is really good to see. So our average odds for Alzheimer's disease. No risk variance for multiple sclerosis and HLA gene. And she's got a predisposition to intermediate odds of cardiovascular issues, which is really good to see. All right. For vitiligo panel, she's got one HLA risk variant for vitiligo in the HLA gene. And for the facial morphology panel, all European variants in ETAR. Very interesting. No micropenis, really good to see. She's not an Asian flusher, really, really good to see. Better performing muscles like the sprinter rather than endurance athlete, really good to see. Zero risk variance for pain hypersensitivity out of 2 total, really good to see. So she doesn't have pain hypersensitivity in SC and 9A. Really important gene. She's got heterozygous genotype in these 2 variations in MTHFR, so we probably will see a bad result for the homocysteine panel because both of these variations play a very big role in the homocysteine panel. And we do remember she was scoring high for the um, on the polygenic risk score page for the cardiovascular issues panel. So this is probably why, probably because of the homocysteine gene panel. Um, okay, we can skip over all that. Cancers, rare diseases, and traits. Let's look. Let's look at the rare diseases. She's a carrier for the tuberculosis risk allele, which is very interesting. Um, and that's it. I don't see any other risk variants here. All right. Single HLA-DQ8 haplotypes, which leads to a higher risk of celiac disease than average. Which is kind of a risk, which is kind of a interesting genotype. It's very rare, and it definitely contributes to issues with the HLA gene panel. But really, most of the HLA-related variants in this genome are really good. So HLA gene panel is looking pretty good because most of the genotypes are really healthy. There's just a couple that are unfortunate. Okay, and we don't see any risk variants for Canavan syndrome. No for Crohn's. One protective variant in HLA-C. So she actually has a genotype here that's protective from HIV from HIV, which is really good. Also in the HLA gene. We could explore the HLA genotypes right now. Let's probably do that. Let's do it. So let's see. Do we have anything else besides the HLA-DQ? Yeah. So this is one of the bad variants. Do we have any other bad variations here? Any other bad genotypes? Um, is there any other bad genotypes here? Let's find out. Um, there is this genotype which is also bad. So there's two. There is this which is also kind of bad. That's three. And that's pretty much it. And that's four, slightly lower antibody level on average. And that's pretty much it. And there's five. So there's a couple of genotypes that are unfortunate, but I think they're all heterozygous. So they aren't even that much of a risk, and it's 5 out of like 25. So overall, the HLA gene panel is looking really good. So we can see that with the numbers. The numbers look really good. The highest thing she scores is lower odds of autoimmune disease. And for the CBS gene panel, we can already see the impact that these two MTHFR variations had on the CBS gene panel. She's scoring intermediate or elevated homocysteine levels, only 5.55% odds for lower homocysteine levels. Yeah, so the CBS gene panel is definitely looking very, very cooked. And that is the reason, actually, why she scored what she scored for the. That is actually the reason why she scored what she scored for the cardiovascular issues panel on the polygenic risk scores page. All right. For muscular dystrophy myopathy, she's got no risk variance for that, no risk variance for ADL either. Really good to see. For colorblindness panel, no risk variance for colorblindness. For FCO gene panel, she's got predisposition to lower or intermediate odds of obesity. Really good to see. So she's quite protected from obesity. For syncope panel, based on 3 SNPs, she's got way below average odds of syncope, 0.89 times the average odds of syncope. Syncope is essentially when you lose consciousness because you lose blood flow to your brain. It is usually psychological because of some psychological event. You lose blood flow to your brain. I'm not sure why it happens. I've had it happen to myself, but yep, it happens sometimes. And she's got one copy of the hunter-gatherer TCL1 gene variant plus one copy of the farmer variant, which leads to intermediate ability to process carbs and sugars. By the way, keep in mind, I'm not sure what is the ethnic linkage, what is the ethnic implications of this CLTCL1 hunter-gatherer and farmer variant. I'm sure there's been some studies done into this. I have never read into those studies, but her ancestry is mostly farmer. Most of her ancestry is Anatolian Neolithic farmer, Zagrozian farmer, and Natufian, which started out as a hunter-gatherer but very very quickly became a farmer. So um, her ancestry is mostly farmers, you know, and because Natufians, they started out as hunting and gathering, but their descendants, they became farmers very quickly because they invented like crop agriculture. So most of her ancestors have been farming. So I think for them, having the farmer variant where you have advantage in processing carbs and sugars would be very, very advantageous. I wonder these farmer variants are more frequent in people who have Mediterranean ancestry. That is what I'm trying to get at, the point I'm trying to get across. And for the blood type, her blood type is actually very unique because this is the highest I've seen anybody score for a specific blood type with my tool. She's scoring 98.9% odds of blood type O and only 1.4% odds of blood type A. I wasn't even sure that it is possible to score like this. So 98.5% odds of blood type O. It's fair to say she's definitely blood type O, guys. Like definitely blood type O for her. That's very interesting. So this sample is very definitively blood type O. Very cool. Now, thanks for watching my video until the very end. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Uh, um, check out the description of the video. In the description will be the link to buy my trait predictor. In the description will be the link to buy the DNA file that I analyzed in this video. Buying the DNA file, it's a very cool way to support what I do here on YouTube. Make sure I continue providing this content for you guys and stay afloat, just support my work by supporting what I do monetarily. And thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. Goodbye.